Hi guys, my name's George Donoghue. I'm a producer and mix engineer, and I'm here to give you my studio revelations. So today we're going to be talking about studio revelation number 1, and that is EQ. So I'm going to be showing you some EQ techniques that can clean up and improve your mixes, and we're also going to be talking about EQ creatively, thinking about how we can use it as a songwriting device to create tension and release and to create dynamic. So EQ is a key component to recording and mixing, and it's one of the processes that we spend the majority of our time on. So for this reason, I'm going to be discussing EQ and breaking it down into 2 processes. And this will hopefully improve your EQ technique, and it will therefore improve your mixing and the results that you get. So before we jump into it, let's just quickly go over the parameters of an EQ. So you have a low pass filter, and as you can see, this allows the lows to pass, so it cuts off everything above the selected frequency cutoff. You have a high pass filter, which allows everything below the selected frequency cutoff to pass. You have a high shelf and a low shelf, so this allows you to boost or cut all the frequencies above or below the set frequency, as you can see. You have a bell curve, so this is going to boost or cut any frequencies over a specific range, and you can narrow or widen the bell curve. You have a notch filter, so this is going to attenuate frequencies of a specific range and allow frequencies to pass lower or higher than it. So lastly, you have a band pass, and this removes any frequencies outside of the range and allows any frequencies within that range to pass. So this is going to be things that you hear like a radio effect, or when you can combine a high pass, low pass filter. So now that we understand filters, let's have a look through the parameters of a parametric EQ. Now, a parametric EQ is the most common and versatile type of EQ used in music production, and you will usually use this for things like corrective EQ. So we have the frequency, which is the center frequency range of the selected band, and it also sets the frequency of the cutoff of a high or low pass filter. So this is our frequency here. We can see it's moving. I'm just going to boost this so you can see it, and that's our frequency that we're going to be notching. We have our resonance, or the Q, which is here. As you can see, this is how wide or narrow the bandwidth is, how much of the surrounding frequencies we want to affect. We have the gain here. So this is how much we are boosting a frequency by or cutting it. Then we have the filter slope and filter type. So if you're using, for example, a low pass filter, which I'll put this in, you've got how aggressive this slope is, and then we've got the frequency, and you've got the filter type here as well, which you can switch through. So when I think about EQ, I break it into 2 categories: corrective EQ and creative EQ. So corrective EQ is when we remove any unwanted or masking frequencies to help improve our mix or our audio. And creative EQ is where we start to think more creatively. So we start to use different types of filters, like a high pass, low pass filter, or different notches, potentially automation, to help create tension and release within the song, to help lift the listener's ear, and to help place the sound in a certain spectrum of the mix. So corrective EQ for me is probably one of the biggest studio revelations I've had in terms of improving my mixes. So now I'm going to walk you through that process step by step. So first of all, let's just listen to the track. So that sounds pretty cool at the minute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this electric guitar on its own, and I'm going to bypass the EQ that's currently going on. And now let's listen to it with the EQ. So what you can hear is that EQ is just tightening up the electric guitar, especially on those big chords. It's taking out some of those low frequencies and taking out some of that harshness as well. So now let's look through what's going on the EQ. So here's my finished EQ on this particular guitar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass this plugin, and I'm going to walk you through how I got to this finished process. So here's my flat EQ. I'm using the FabFilter Pro Q2, but you could use anything. I'm using this because this will probably look the most similar to those of you who are potentially using Logic as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I know there's no frequencies on this electric guitar that I'm going to want to use under about 100 Hertz. So I'm going to do a low cut filter here. I'm going to put this to around 100. I'm just going to listen to that and see how that affects the guitar. So it's not really taking out anything useful. I'm just going to take out any of that low end rumble that I don't want eating up bottom end. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go fishing for potential offending masking frequencies. So what I'm going to do is listen to this. And straight away I can hear this. I kind of describe it as the owl. There's a whoo going on in there. So I'm going to go and find that frequency. So I'm going to put a really narrow Q on my filter. And now I'm going to go fishing for this frequency. There it is. Pull that frequency down and just notch that out. And let's listen to that in context. So that's there. Let's go and find any other offending frequencies. Let's listen to that in context and bypass them. So straight away we can hear how that EQ has cleaned up some of those masking frequencies in the guitar, and it's allowed the top end frequencies to shine through a little bit more and give the guitar a bit more bite. So hopefully that all makes sense and you can see how you can use corrective EQ to help clean up your audio and ultimately clean up your mix. If you're learning this skill, don't get frustrated with it. It does take time to hear these frequencies, and I recommend you start on something like a drum or a single note, as that frequency will be consistently the same and it will be easier to train your ears. So now we understand corrective EQ, let's talk about creative EQ. So as we discussed, creative EQ is really cool because you can use it as a songwriting device to create dynamic, you can use it for tension and release, you can use it to lift the listener's ear and ultimately make your mixes more exciting. So I'm going to walk you through a few examples of how I've used creative EQs in mixes. So here's an example of how I've used creative EQ to create dynamic in a song. So this is in the drop chorus section of a song going into the final chorus. And what I've done is I've put a high pass, low pass filter on the vocal to make it sound like a radio effect. So it really explodes going into that final chorus. So let's have a listen to that now.
My head's in the clouds again. This time I like you when you're not around. Don't burst my bubble. Don't burst my bubble. Don't burst my bubble.
So you can see how that creative EQ has helped create and accentuate the dynamic going into that final chorus. Now in this example, I'm going to be showing you how you can use creative EQ combined with automation to create tension and release within your songs. So first off, let's listen to the verse into the chorus and hear what's going on.
Drinking the weeks away, hoping we'll wake up unashamed, hollow. Maybe you should go. What are we doing? You know I don't know where I wanna be. What were we thinking? It's not exactly how I wanna be, no. All alone, never thought this would be so difficult. All alone.
So let's have a deeper look at what's going on in this pre-chorus to create the tension and release. So the first thing to take note of is this drum kit coming in here, and it's got a high pass, low pass filter on it that opens up so the real drums are unfiltered as it kicks in on the chorus. So the idea behind that filter opening up is it's supposed to create a bit of tension, so you have that payoff of the real drum kit coming in on the chorus. And there's a few more examples of that going on in this song, which I'll show you now. So I've actually used the same device here with this reverse snare drum as well. And then I've used the same idea again on the synthesizer. So this song in particular actually has the same chord progression throughout the song. And I've used these creative EQ techniques as a songwriting device to help create tension and release throughout the song. So this layering of EQs opening up in the pre-chorus gives you the payoff in the chorus, as you can hear.
You know I don't know where I wanna be.
So I hope you found these techniques useful and they've given you some inspiration. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you next time for Studio Revelations Part 2.